Hello again, how you doing? This is George Santana again. Listen, I hope you studied the first tape, because in this tape, we're going to get right into the thick of things. I'm going to teach you some motion and movement and some universal principles that you utilize with these techniques. Now in the first tape, we studied basic motion and movement against a primary strike, meaning the first strike that came at us. Now what we're going to start doing is working on certain drills, and from those drills, we'll get into how to deal with the secondary strike, then the third strike or trinary strike, understanding the fact that the opponent is what matters in self-defense, not how we look or how good we look doing a certain technique in the mirror and so forth, but what we do with that opponent and how we deal with that opponent. So, study the drills, study the motion and movement, remember what we studied on the first tape, and then I believe you'll be able to get a glimpse of really how you can benefit from the Filipino arts. Watch. All right, what I'd like to do now is go over some drills that we have in the Filipino arts. There are many drills, many drills. Each system and style has their own varieties of these drills. This first drill that I'm going to go through is called de cadena, meaning of the chain. In other words, each technique in this drill is considered a link in a chain. The whole idea is maintain the links in the chain, and at an opportune time, cut each link by utilizing a technique to counter. Now, once we do this with the baston, what we're going to do is utilize the same technique with the empty hand, and that's called cadena de mano. Same principle. Each technique is a link in the chain, and each counter is a cutting of the link. Okay, in de cadena, we utilize the baston, and what we do, it's actually a 4-count basic exercise that we utilize with, and then we get more involved in the counters and recountering and so forth. It basically looks like this. It's a basic 4-count exercise. You're striking 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then you repeat that. 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right. 2, and 4. And now what happens is, whoever decides to initiate it can initiate a counter. Notice how I came in. I was getting ready to use the puño to strike him. From here, what he's going to do is he's going to come back, and I'm going to, what's called passing, pass him over and utilize my puño. What he'll do is check me, then come back with his puño. And what I'll do is recheck and bring him back out, and we'll come back to the beginning of the exercise. Okay? Now, let's break that down a little bit more. As I pass, I go with my puño. What's happening here is he's coming back out, ready to slice me with his sword hand. Here. What I'm doing here is checking it. And as he checks my puño, I bring him across and check his hand, come back with my puño, and he'll check mine and come back with his. It's a constant give and take motion. Constant give and take motion. And what happens is you start getting used to moving with this exercise, utilizing different techniques for checking, coming in, and rechecking. Okay, that's a basic exercise. But what happens is, within the exercise, there are different techniques you can utilize to counter an opponent. This is a real close-in fighting system. It entails a lot of inside motion that's kind of hard to catch. So what we're going to do is go slowly, and I want you to watch some of the techniques involved. This represents, of course, striking the weapon hand. Not really striking the weapon hand now, but in reality, in combat, you would be striking the weapon hand. Let's get you used to striking. You're always thinking, weapon hand, the hand, the hand, the hand. This is bypassing a strike. If a strike should come, I can bypass and strike here. What we do in the exercise is get used to utilizing the puño. Now he's checked me. What he's going to want to do now is come right back, and I'm going to recheck him and pass it. And staying in close, coming in with a puño, and then he'll come out and back out. Simple motion and movement. If you want, when you start off with, you can work this way. Just stay here for a little while. Stay here for a little while. Again. Stay there. Staying there in that position there. Coming out with the blade, and I'm coming with the puño. All right, turn slowly this way. Again, hit him out, come back out. Here, that's it. And what I'll do is I'll pass him over this way. I'll catch him here, just like a cross. I'll bring him over and come out with my puño. He'll check and come back out. It's called a give and take. It's a basic way to start off. Then come back out. Now from here, I'll come in, keep him there for a little while, bring him back out. That's it, come back out. Then after a while, after he gets comfortable with me, what I'll do, bring him in, and then bring him back out, and then out again. Once you get a person comfortable with this, getting used to countering and so forth, then you're ready to interject some techniques inside the exercise. In other words, if we're here, I lead him in, as he comes back out, I can execute a disarm. All right, once again, slowly. Lead him in, as he comes back out. As he's coming here with the blade, I can introduce a disarm. Also, by the same token now, for every counter there's a counter and a counter to the counter. As I come in and as I disarm, what he can do is let go of his weapon. He can grab from here and he can disarm me in turn. Okay? Again, 1, 2, 3. All right. If I don't disarm him and decide to bring him over, as I bring him over here, as I'm bringing him over, he can also execute a disarm, which, again, disarm, also leaves me with a position to disarm him from here, utilize a technique. Okay? Now from here, also, if he decides not to disarm, he can come in and slice. Now, inside the exercise, that looks like this. Slicing across. My counter to that would be here. As he decides to slice, I can execute, it's called a number 2 disarm. Now from here also, if I decide, check, when I decide to pass him over and he rechecks, he's in a position now to trap me and use a puño. See? Again, slowly. There's all kinds of subtle moves in this exercise that one can take advantage of. These are just some of them. Just go with the exercise, that's it. From here I can switch and go into a lock. Once we're here, in the give and take, any hand can be switched. As his hand's coming out, I have an opportunity to go into a lock, or back out. I have an opportunity there to switch and go into a lock. The whole idea behind this exercise is to develop a sensitivity within the exercise and your timing to utilize those disarms and techniques and locks and so forth. If we put the weapon down, the concept of translation says that anything we do with a stick, we can do with the hand, and anything we do with a stick in the hand, we can do with the blade. If we're here, utilizing the same motion and movement, if I come in, this is the same motion I used with the stick, except now instead of the puño, it's an elbow I'm coming in. He's checking the elbow, coming back with a punch. Now from here, I check, back fist, and we go to the give and take. I bring him back out, and the same motion and movements entail. Now from here, if he comes out and punches, I have an opportunity to execute an arm bar. By the same token, when I come in, he can also grab and go to the arm bar. Within the exercise, once we're here, the give and take, I have an opportunity to execute lock. Or if we're here in the give and take, back out. See, from here, give and take, go to this side. Doesn't matter. From here, go here. Now I start utilizing my leg jams. Back to the give and take here. Leg jams here. And what I can do is I can keep the motion and movement going. Always checking the hands, keeping eye pokes. leg jams, and so forth. The whole idea behind the exercise is be able to keep the motion and movement going, the sensitivity drill going, and keeping your opponent off balance. So that's called de cadena, and this is cadena de mano. Next we'll go on to another drill, and take your time with this. Utilize it and go slowly. Watch. All right, now what we're going to do is go through an exercise that's called sombrada or sombrada. Basically what it means is shade. What you do is you're shading your opponent, your partner. You're always shading his motion and movement. He does a motion and movement, you copy the motion or cover it. Now there's two basic ways you can practice this drill. The whole idea just to develop your timing, keeping aware of your dagger hand and your sword hand. The drill, like I said, can be utilized in free form, fast flowing fashion, or in slow motion to break down and understand your technique. Basically what we're going to start off with is a 3-count motion and movement. Basically it involves a strike overhead and a block. What I'll do is strike him, number 3 angle, he'll parry and check, and I'll hit parry and check. Then I'll strike him overhead. 1, and he'll strike me. 2 and 3. Again. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Now what's going on is this. As he strikes, I'm parrying and checking with my dagger hand. As I do, I come around and strike him. He does the same thing. He parries and checks. He strikes me, I parry and check. Once you get comfortable with this, what you'll be doing is moving in your tri-stance to compensate for distances and timing. And we start up again. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Now notice I switch my tri-stance to face my attack. And my dagger hand is constantly checking his. 1, 2. I neither overextend nor am I too in with my technique. Basic motion and movement. Then when we increase this to 2 more moves, we have a little slightly more advanced method of using this. It involves more motion and more movement and more awareness. And then when we go free form, it'll involve intensive timing. So the next step would be here. A 5-count. 1, 2, 3, added thrust, and a shoulder block. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Notice I'm maneuvering around him. And checking weapon hand. Switching tri-stance and checking. Then if we start speeding it up, relax, that's it. You can also add counters and so forth. So just keep the basic motion and movement slow. And what I've noticed in some styles, they've adapted this motion and movement to using other weapons. For instance, the wooden sword, or bokken. Now, the way it's been adapted to, like I said, all adaptions, and I believe, are positive, but you must keep in mind the different compensations that you have to utilize when you use different weapons. So if we utilize this motion and movement, we would hold it in one hand with the bokken till we got the motion and movement down. Same thing, nothing's changed. And then what happens is you start using 2 hands. Nothing's changed, same motion and movement. But when other systems start copying or start utilizing these techniques, they must keep in mind other things that are very relevant and important. In other words, if he strikes me here and he continues his motion as I move around, I'm going to get cut. See? He continues his motion, I'm going to get cut. From here, he blocks. Same motion. Let's go to the exercise. 1, 2. As he comes down to strike 3, he's already cut. So if you're going to adapt these techniques and exercises, keep in mind the reality of the weapon you're using. Okay. Now we're going to go on to another technique and exercise, and practice this before you move on. Watch. We're going to get another drill, another exercise. It's called the hubad drill. Sometimes it's called the puño sombrada. The drill is, again, it's a very simplistic drill, utilizing striking with the puño. And the idea behind the drill is just to keep in mind your timing and how to utilize a different weapon, how to strip the weapon, and how to reverse. And basically, it's all timing. All fighting is timing and motion and movement. So it's a basic drill. It's a basic 3-count drill, actually. The way it's done is this. My partner comes down striking with the puño directly here. Okay, later on we'll get into being able to strike the puño from this direction, just like the decadena. But for right now, the puño comes out this way. What I want to do is I want to check on the inside. He's checking on the inside, come out using my forearm to cover and recheck, and then he'll do the same thing with me. 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's it, see? Simple motion and movement. Then you want to just get a little cadence going. All right, once you get comfortable with this, you can start learning and practicing is the stripping of the weapon. It's one method. Continue the motion. Okay, he could strip the weapon and hold on to it. What happens is we're involved with the same thing now. And I can strip it here. Continue the motion and movement. If he strips it and lets go of the weapon, we're into a different aspect of the drill. Now, straight in punch. Switch sides this way. Okay? Now, we'll go over it slowly again, from the beginning. Again, he strikes down with the puño. Just simply checking on the inside, representing cutting the opponent. Redirecting, hitting, and checking, and striking. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Stripping the weapon. Continuing the motion. He strips the weapon and continues the motion. He decides to keep it. So what I have to do is compensate. Now from here, I can strip also. Okay, if I decide to let go of the weapon, I come back with a punch. The motion remains the same, motion and movement. 1, 2, 3, 3. Switching, that's what it looks like. 1, 2, 3. You can do this with blades and knives. If I were to have a knife in my hand, I could switch. I can cut here. And as he cuts, I can switch grips and cut as he's retreating, and then as he's coming in, cut again with the reverse grip. Or I could switch and cut on the inside. But simple basic motion and movement. Simple motion and movement. Okay, that's a basic drill. What you want to utilize is practice it very slowly. The whole idea isn't to go fast or quick. It's to utilize timing and having fun with this and utilizing the different techniques. So we'll move on to another technique and another drill. Watch. What I'm going to attempt to do is try to put it all together for you. Not for you, but to help you think. Some of the things we've been doing, we did in the first tape. Some of the basic techniques. You're going to find their expression here. If you practice some of the drills, the senawales, the redondas, if you practice some of those movements, you'll be able to see the roots of the technique itself. And once again, I caution you, don't concentrate on technique. Understand the movement behind the technique, and you'll be able to see the similarities. All right, what I want to work on is understanding how to deal with the secondary strike and the trinary, the third strike. In other words, we practiced inside number 1. I'll go over slow. Here, remember this motion and movement? Okay, and if the man strikes from downward direction, here. Now that left us with the secondary strike. We know that's coming. All right, we know that motion and movement is coming. Again, so what we're going to do is deal with it as it comes. We're going to continue our motion and finish off our technique. But what I want you guys now to realize is this, is something that as you finish off your technique, try to figure out what are you actually doing? What am I doing with this? If you watch the motion and movement slowly, slow motion, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, once again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Watch again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again. Slow, slow. Watch this. Slow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Look at the motion and movement. What am I doing? So am I doing the outside movement, inside movement for Sarada for number 1? Am I doing Sinawali? Or am I doing Redonda? Which is it? Is it 1, 2, 3, or is it all of them? Again, watch the motion and movement here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, put the stick down. Punch comes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Stay there. Punch. 1, 1. No, stay there. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, punch. 2, 3, 4. Or 1, punch. 2, 3, 4. The motion and movement, it's all the same. What you're doing constantly is utilizing your hands in a certain way. There's only so many ways you can utilize your arms and hands. That's why it's very important you don't get caught up in styles. Get caught up in my teacher or their teacher or my system and their system. If you understand the roots of things, if you understand the real origins of all motion and movement, you'll see that there's no room for pettiness and ego. I mean, it's all the same. Understand your motion and movement, and you're able to utilize any technique at any time. So anyway, watch a little more on what we're doing, and you'll be able to see some of these things. Watch the next segment. With Filipino arts, you find a lot of techniques, and you find a lot of new ways to defend against an opponent. One of the things that, as I mentioned earlier, that isn't concentrated on is the fact that the secondary strike is going to come, and the third strike. That's why the first tape that we studied, we concentrated on basics, on the primary strike. Yeah, we looked real good against the primary. In reality, that second strike's coming, and then the third strike. So what I'd like to do now is get a little more involved in it and start studying it from a perspective from the opponent's point of view. So many times, as my teacher taught me, we concentrate on what we do, what we're doing. We look real good in front of a camera or look real good in front of a mirror. Never stopping to think that in reality we have to worry about the opponent and what he's doing. He's what's of primary importance, not us. So if my partner were to strike, remember outside number 1? 1, 2, when we just worked on it, we just stopped working on it. In reality, if you notice the motion and movement, I told you earlier that this is all the same. The double Sinawali is the redonda. Everything else is exactly the same. The reason why we learn those techniques and we learn the left and right techniques of those drills is because of the fact that the secondary is coming. At any time, my motion and movement might be interrupted and will be interrupted by the secondary. So if I strike 1, he strikes again, 2 automatically goes here. And in reality, 3 is coming. So my next motion and movement, 3, is meant to interrupt his third motion and movement. Never stopping my motion and movement. Always keeping in mind the fact that what the drill did teach me was to utilize both left and right sides. But keeping him in mind, not myself or how I look, but keeping him in mind. Once again, if I'm in the motion and movement here, and he strikes, I might end up here. Now if you notice the way his body position, as he begins his third strike, you're in a position interrupted. And from here, continue with your counters. Now that goes for being on the inside or outside. Once again, if you were to strike, I'm on the inside here. The same motion and movement can take place. He strikes here. Same motion and movement here, or simple as that, here. Keeping in mind his momentum. Keeping in mind his momentum, his body weight, and his structure and how fast he's striking, it will determine my response. So there is no cut and dried response. That's why we don't get caught up in, this is the only way to deal with the number 1 angle. This is the only way to deal with the number 2 angle, and so forth. There's no such thing as that. The whole idea is to be able to explore the different techniques, different systems, keeping an open mind, and utilizing universal concepts of motion and movement. Once again, if you watch the opponent's structure, when he punches, he's not punching with this. He's punching with the lead foot. He's punching with his head. His entire body's involved. If I were to accept the secondary strike and deal with it, I could cut. If, on the other hand, I decide to just let it go and evade, I'm in a position to tie him up, trap, throw a lock, cut up here, or do anything I wish, keeping in mind his balance. Look at his balance, where he's positioned now. If I were here and he threw a third strike from here, it's enough to unbalance him using the leg arts, or the Filipino arts. So keep in mind that, yes, we keep in mind when we work with the Serrata system that a man can cut us if we extend too long, but each situation is different. Each situation is different, and we will utilize different techniques for each of those situations. What I'd like to bring to mind, I mentioned it before, I'd like to mention it again, the fact that whatever we do with the stick, we can do with the blade. Whatever we do with the stick and the blade, we can do with the empty hand. The whole idea, when you study the Filipino arts, is when you keep in mind the fact that it is a blade art. So when you practice your 12 strikes, you practice your 12 strikes keeping in mind that you're using espada y daga, keeping in mind that you're striking with the blade. When you utilize the stick, you're striking with the blade of the stick, keeping in mind that in reality, you're always cutting, checking, either with the blade, the sword, or the dagger. Always in mind, one and the other. Even if you're utilizing this motion and movement, which is meant for long-range weapons, you can use this motion and movement in tight. And you're cutting, always cutting. Always cutting. One hand is either slicing, the other one is cutting. Take, for instance, the inside motion for number 1. Now I'm going to go slow because I don't want to hurt my partner. From here, the motion and movement is here. This motion cuts. This one cuts. This one cuts in deeply. I'm slicing and checking. Also, when you do some of your disarms, again, if you notice what happens when you're doing your disarm, you're cutting here, cutting around, and when you disarm, you're executing a simultaneous cut and stab. What you want to do is get some dull weapons, and just for your own sake, just practice outside movement for number 1. This would be a cut, cut, slice. From here you have your opponent, or here. Always keeping in mind the reality of what you're doing. Also, from here, the secondary. He comes. Look at this. What motion and movement is this? This is a Senawali. Or is it outside? I keep asking you that question because I wanted you to understand that all motion and movement is universal. Okay? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the tape. I hope you got something out of the tape more than just technique, concepts, knowledge, understanding the fact that all systems and styles have something to offer. There is no one system or one way. If there were, then I guess there would only be one system and one style of school open commercially. But in reality, what I'd like to get across is that you study all aspects, understand motion and movement, understand the roots of things. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the tape, and I look forward to seeing you again.